Welcome to Seekers of the Malediction, your source for discussion on tips, tricks, and strategies in our favorite miniatures card game. As ever, we are a competitive podcast, and our views and opinions are going to be filtered through that lens. I'm Zach. I'm here with Pat. Take it away.
Yeah, so today we're going to be doing the Order of the Shattered Throne deck review, just like we've done with the other three factions. So we'll be going through each card, giving our thoughts and analyses, and then giving a letter grade to each card. A is reserved for the bombs. This is always going to be good, almost never in a spot that's unplayable. B range is going to be, those cards that you're really looking to fill your deck with. C range is going to be those niche cards, or maybe there's certain decks that really want them. D cards are a little bit lacking at the moment. Maybe there's something in the future or an interaction that will get introduced that will make them better. And then Fs are just currently unplayable. We don't really see a scenario where they're going to be good. Something I wanted to call out is that we do put all the cards and the grades in the description below for the channel, so please check that out for your convenience. And if you do like us, make sure to like and subscribe the video for future content. So with that, let's get into the first card. All right, so we have Answer the Call. It is a 2-cost basic spell channel speed. Play a unit. Oh, play and deploy a. Play and deploy. Play a unit and deploy it as a reinforcement to an engaged ally. Why don't you go, Zach? I need a minute to get it out of my system. Apparently.
Yeah, I think this card is interesting. It has interesting uses. The fact that obviously the unit comes in, it can activate, it can just add 2 AP to your board, surprising your opponent essentially outside of the deployment phase is uh good. And being able to play the unit as a reinforcement to an engaged ally, sort of bypassing the normal rules for reinforcement. Again, really good. This card, though, I my initial grade on it was lower than it should be, and I think we saw that back in the Conclave episode with Dimensional Breach, and sort of as we've played more, we've tested a bunch of games, we've learned just how powerful that sort of additional surprise tempo can be for units coming onto the board and activating that very turn. And this is, no exception. This is a fantastic card for something like that. My issue with it is I don't know that it always has a slot in the deck because white on its own has some very powerful cards. It has excellent units, which this does support, but I don't know that you always have one, two, three slots in your 30 for something like this. Possibly, but that's kind of where my grade slips a bit on it. And I think my initial grade was a little low. We'll wrap that up at the end with talking about this card. That said, I don't think it's a staple necessarily.
Yeah, I've been up and down on this card a lot recently. So like you hit on all my similar thoughts. Is that it's like I've tried to build decks with the intent of putting this card in first. Like, all right, I'm gonna try to build like around this card, and um, somehow it always ends up getting cut. Like, I just feel like I get to a point where like I play this card and I was like, well, why don't I just like play the unit? Like what is like one of the surprise factor of like we talked about how strong putting units mid activation is, but this one has to be in your hand already, and I think that's its biggest drawback is that you have to have it in your hand rather than fetching it from your deck or from your discard pile or somewhere else. So that's been my biggest thing is like, well, if I already have the card in my hand, I should just play it and not try to like get this surprise tempo play, right?
Yeah, I think that that's true, and I think that's true in most cases. And maybe that's right. Maybe where this card boils down to is that its true benefit is being able to deploy it, being able to deploy the unit next to an engaged ally, and that is going to be situational,
Yeah,
right? Necessarily so.
yeah.
Um, my grade on it initially was a C plus, might be a B minus, um, but it's about there. I think it's going to struggle to find slots, but I don't think that that means it's necessarily a bad card.
Yeah, I like I said, I had it a D plus. I moved it up to a C. I think I'm back to a D plus right now. It's really like I think it could get better with more cards. I think the most ideal use case for this is you drop something like a Battlemaster with Onslaught, right? That's hitting at 4/2 or something. Like I want to drop a big threat using this into something that's engaged without like the fear of my opponent taking it off the board before it gets to activate, right? Um,
Yeah, and I think there's that. I think the other thing to note, maybe before we move on from this card, is just there are a lot of situations, again, situationally, right, where you get tied up on the board, and it might even be particularly true with sort of the sticky sort of mid-range play that Sigrith or even in some cases Landriel has, um, where all of your people are stuck in. You don't really have anywhere to deploy, and maybe deploying in your deployment zone is actually super detrimental. There's something there. Again, it's situational.
yeah,
I think I'm still pretty hard in the C's on this card, but um, I don't know.
yeah.
It's a weird one.
This is one where the community can come and tell us how we're wrong. I'd love to hear it and have
Yes,
more
please
discussion on
do.
it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I was going to say that at the beginning, and maybe I'll take a quick second right at the, start here and just say, like, we definitely, and I think it will be fun to do a recap episode at some point, have been off on certain cards. I think we've been on certain cards that other people have been off on when they've come, back later. But the discussion, the engagement, the um arguments from other people about why our grade is right or wrong have been really fun. And I definitely encourage that sort of engagement. If you think we're wrong, come at me. I love it.
All right, we'll move on to the next one here. Armored Revenant, 5 cost, basic unit, 2 attack, 4/2 damage, 5 speed, 12 defense, 12 HP. It has counterattack. Whenever a hit is scored against this unit, it may retaliate after the damage resolves. Cleave, whenever this unit defeats a nearby enemy with a melee attack, it may perform a free melee attack. Why don't you go ahead for this one too, Zach?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of fun just to note that this is one of the few 5 cost units. Do any other colors have 5 cost
No.
units? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's really interesting. This is one of what, two, I think, in white/yellow.
3.
Is it three? Okay.
So
And
yellow
and
has
that's
two, 5, and then Landrill has Warden, and those are the only 5 drops
true. I
in the
forgot
game.
about Warden.
So,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that is really interesting. That said, I don't have a ton to say about this card because counterattack, great. Cleave, excellent. Stats, totally in line, I think, with the 5 cost. I mean, 12/12 on his defense. Yeah, maybe,
mhm.
puts him a little fragile. But like he's a 4/2 damage with counterattack and cleave. I don't know. I think he's solid. I think he's a kind of a, I don't know that I'd call him a staple. I don't think every white deck is playing him, but he's totally great in the ones that do.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
solid.
Yeah, my comments on this card are definitely around the 5 drop slot, just in general. He obviously him with cleave and counterattack is great, but 5 drops are an interesting breakpoint where they are the lowest ones to 4 drops and below are either 3/1 or 3/2, right? And 5 drops are 4/2. Typically, except for the Warden, which is 3/2, but he has the what is it? It's not. Is it
I
Empower?
think
The
spell strike.
Spell
Spell
Strike. Thank
strike.
you. So he goes up to a 4/3 if you cast a spell. So like to me, these are like fives are premium slot because they are the first cards that start hitting like your heavier hitters, right? And they're the cheapest ones that can do it. So for me, I'm typically always looking to get fives in my deck because they're just like we talked about like how me personally I'm very low on like the 6 or 7 unit ones. They're just
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
expensive. They give up too much morale, but fives hit just as hard as 6 and 7. So that to me this is great. I gave this a B plus. I love the 12 HP. That like, and I actually like that he has some defense, 12, but like I want this guy to get hit, honestly. Like all the times I'm building a deck with this guy, I'm thinking, how can I get more use out of counterattack, right? Is it with Sigrith, where I can shield it and then I get a hit back twice if I fully, prevent the damage? Is it stuff with like Auric, where I can do retribution, counterattack, kill a guy, and then cleave into, you know what I mean? Like I think there's those
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
abilities on the same card, there's a lot of interesting plays. If he gets boots, he's like just bouncing all around the table with cleave. So I think he's a really good threat. The one downside is speed 5, um, and that does hurt. I honestly, I this guy I remember is speed 5. The knight, which we'll get to in a second, I always forget is speed 5, and I
Yeah.
always end
Yeah.
up accidentally cheating and moving him 6 inches. But yeah, I give him a B plus. What about you?
I gave him a B, but I could totally see B plus. I think he's just totally solid. I like him a lot.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Astaris, a Battlemaster, 6 cost, elite unit, 3 attack, 4/2 damage, 5 speed, 13 defense, 14 health. Onslaught, this unit performs up to 3 separate melee attacks. Men at Arms, this unit can equip an extra item. I'll go with this. So as,
Sure.
as I mentioned, I think this is the guy you want to drop into melee to onslaught to do a potential 12 damage. It's really good. Outside of this model really doesn't, or outside of that like interaction, this model just doesn't really excite me much. Speed 5 is really slow, and like his onslaughting is going to be always a counterattack, which like if I'm playing against this, I just don't think I ever give him a chance. Like I'm I'm not engaging this dude unless I know I can kill it, right? Or like it activates and then I engage it with a bunch of stuff and I can kill it, or like I think I can win initiative, right? Like I don't ever want to get into melee with this guy, and he with the limiting speed 5, I just feel like it's going to be hard for him to do things like adrenaline rush or get into to melee easily, and then use that onslaught. I also think that man at arms is kind of like a non. It's like a trap ability. Like items give mastery in this game. Most of the items aren't that great. Why do I want to put my mediocre 6 cost unit a bunch of items to make him better? But then like, is he even better with a bunch of items on him at 10 cost or 9 cost? I don't know. I don't think so. But yeah, what about why don't you go?
I think you hit on everything for the most part. I think that this is one of those units, and we've seen them in the past few episodes, where one of its biggest issues is the faction in which it resides. So this card, like great stats, right? I mean, great stats,
Mm-hmm.
abilities. I think again, I agree with you on Man at Arms. I don't know that it really gets the use that you're like expecting on paper it to get.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Onslaught's good. Delivering the guy is going to be difficult. That said, his stats are generally pretty good for a 6 cost, but do we need it? I mean, do you really need in white those bump in stats for the bump and echo when you have really honestly excellent 5 drops? And as we'll see, a ton of other excellent units. His grade or his usefulness is just hurt by the fact that he exists in a faction that has honestly really good units.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I struggle to find a place for him literally ever.
Yeah, and there could be he might have upside in the future. I think we'll just more than any other faction because of Auric, and there's a bunch of a couple of spells that deal with items and attachments and stuff like Shattered or Order of the Shattered Throne clearly wants to be playing into to equipment. I think that right now we'll do an episode. Our last episode is going to be all the dual faction cards and items as well. But when we do that, I think you'll see that the items are kind of mediocre. There's nothing like, oh my god, this is amazing, and I think that's
Yeah.
fine, right? But like, if you look at Magic the Gathering again, there are some like equipment attachments that are super broken in that game, right? Um, and when you like, I hope that we get there, right, in the future where there's just some like ridiculously good items, and there could be if you get two really broken items on a single unit, could just like break the game, right? And that's why I think this guy
That's
could have upside is like the potential
yeah.
combos of very powerful items on one unit could just straight up like, hey, game's over. I hit the Exodia combo here, right, or something like that. So
Yeah, this guy definitely has the upside of future synergistic items are just gonna make him better. And
yeah,
that's cool. But presently I'm fairly low on him. So I have him at a C plus.
yep,
Really, I'll be honest, as I've built more and more white builds, I don't think I've ever played him. And so he probably even is lower than that. But I think he's solidly in the C's.
yeah. I gave him a C minus. I could see him going into an Auric deck. I think again, this is another conversation topic. Auric has like so many different ways to build him. I think he's the most diverse seeker in terms of builds. So I could see him finding a home in a deck, and that's why I didn't drop him into the D range. So all right. Moving on, we have Barter, 1 cost spell, channel speed. Search your deck for an item and reveal it. You may return an item you own if you in play for the same rank or higher to your deck. If you do play the revealed item without spending Echo and equip it to an ally you own, shuffle your deck. Yeah, I'll. This is just a bad spell. Do not take it. This card is very conditional. You have to have an item on board. You have to have an item still in your deck. I mean, that's probably not, but like you have to have an item on board, and then you're paying not only the Echo. If this card was 0 cost, I don't think it would even be good because you're using a card to go fetch a tutor card and then put it on a unit and then take that card that was on the unit and put it back in your deck. So you're 2-for-1ing yourself. You're spending a card and not like you're just swapping another card. It's not, it's not actually giving you card advantage or anything like that. So I think it's really bad. Yeah. What about you, Zach?
I agree. 2 for 1ing yourself is just bad. Um, there were ways I think that this card could have been decent. If the returned item went to your hand, maybe decent. But it doesn't. And so it's just a straight 2 for 1ing yourself where you're paying the Echo to do so. And it's just not good. This card has a slim potential for an upside if we start getting very niche items that perhaps are like super bombs in particular matchups, and you have some sort of a weird Swiss Army knife type item
Sure.
deck that just doesn't exist yet. And even then, I think it will be questionable whether this is a
Yeah.
card you want,
The
regardless.
reason why I think this card will never be good is because they put the restriction that the item you swap has to be of equal or higher rank, right? So you can't use a basic and then go fetch your unique. That's really powerful,
Yeah,
right? Which
yeah,
is like that's what I feel like this card would maybe want to do and maybe get value out of, but doesn't let you do that. So I don't know. I can't imagine they put out basic or elite items that are super bonkers, right? So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
I have it at an F. I don't think it's playable right now.
Yep. I would be surprised if it's ever playable, but we'll see. F as well
Yeah.
for me. All right, Citadel Crossbowman, 3 cost basic unit, 3 attack, 3-1 damage, 8 range, 6 speed, 11 defense, 8 HP, ranged expert. This unit gets +2 on range attacks. Reload. This unit can perform only 1 range attack per activation. I just want to call out that ranged expert. The keyword, you also see this on the Relic Veil Piercer, which gives +2, and also on the Hunter's, or I think it's Hunter's Bow, the item. So if those items on this guy is not going to make him shoot harder. With that being said, why don't you go first, Zach?
Yeah, super solid card. Super solid for 3 Echo. Appropriately limited with reload, I think, for 3 Echo, because yeah, I mean he 5/3 damage on a 3 cost is great. 8 range is super solid. I don't know that he's quite like a always take staple, but he's dang close.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good. There are ways to make him, which I'm sure you'll go into, very, very good. And I really like him. I think anyone that has put him on the table has seen that his um, sort of limiting factor in reload is not so bad,
Nope.
truthfully. He doesn't care if he has to move and shoot. Um, yeah, solid card. Solid
I,
card. Eight
I,
eight health is rough, but otherwise super solid.
yeah. I think that his reload is also like it. I guess there's situations you would want to stand and shoot, but I almost don't even see it as a drawback because being able to just always, like simplify things and say, hey, this guy's going to move and shoot. I don't need to stress about like. I think that sometimes you will, if you can double shoot or you're trying to get the double attack off, you'll put your models in um, situationally bad positions, right, to get greedy. This guy, you just always play safe with, right? Like he is just always at the back of the line because you know you're always going to get that free move and then you're always going to get that shoot. And then as you mentioned, there's just so many current abilities and spells in the games that let you proc additional attacks. There's Battle Cry on Shaman and Warfront Commander, which are this guy loves those. Let me tell you.
Mhm.
And then there's spells like Adrenaline Rush, and then in spell we'll get to it. Valorous Command. So there's Sigur's ability, which you shield, you can get another shot. So this guy is just always doing work. Hitting at 5 is just it's criminal for a 3 cost unit. Like I don't know, it just like even when this guy dies, you're not sad. So and like your opponent has to like that's the respect he demands for a 3 cost mastery. Like if you just ignore him, this dude's gonna wreck your board. So your opponent has to come and kill him, and then when they do, they're only rewarded for 3 mastery. Feels not great for your opponent. I love this guy. I have him at an A minus.
I'm at a B plus, but I could totally see A minus. Truthfully, I think he's great.
Yeah, I just like you said, he doesn't go in every bit. I think that he's not in my Landrill deck. Maybe that is a mistake, but my Landrill deck is trying to grind out games, and it doesn't want to lose any models. So this guy is at 8 HP. He can get killed, right? And so my Landrill deck is just trying to survive everything essentially. So not quite a home there, but yeah, in every other deck, he's pretty much a staple. So. All
Yeah,
right,
that's
we'll
fine.
move on. I forgot to call this out. Actually, if I noticed this while reading the first card, answer the call, but we're on Convoke now, and the art for Convoke is literally in the background for answer the call, which I thought was kind of cool when we were, I just noticed that when we were doing this. So, anyways,
That's
Convoke
cool.
is 2 costs. Search your deck, spell channel speed. Search your deck for basic unit, reveal it, and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. Why don't you go first on this one?
Yeah, I mean, at this point in the game, this is essentially filter only. Um, yeah, it's a tutor, but it's sort of a turn late tutor with the way the deployment phase works in this game. Um, so it isn't it's turn ahead planning from a tutor kind of basically amounts to just being filter. I'm not sure that it's really necessary in most builds, at least at the moment. Um, Particularly because it's for a basic unit. So I don't know. I don't know. It's more or less an additional copy or, three of a particular basic that you feel like you need to have on the field. It's mid. It's
Yeah.
mid. I mean, it's playable, and it's not like terrible at all, but it just doesn't do much.
Yeah, I agree. There's no base like I just want units in my hand. I don't really care at right now I don't think there's any like critical basic units that are like essential to a deck, right? So I try to make a list with this card in mind. And then I realize like I don't care what basics I'm hitting. So therefore I'll replace this card with just more basics, right? More units, and then I'll just not have to pay the 2 premium tax and the card draw, which I guess we might do a longer episode on this, but I'll address it now. Card draw in this game, to me, does not feel as good as other games because unless you hit a spell, um, when you draw a card in the middle of activation, it doesn't do anything for you that turn, right? It is not going to affect the board state unless you hit a spell that you can play and then have it affect. If you draw a unit, you have to wait a whole turn for it to be, and if the game ends that turn, that card draw did nothing for you, right? Um, so I'm kind of like card draw is still good, right? You want card advantage, but I
It's
think
always good.
yeah, but I do think that it isn't as relevant in this game as it might be in your traditional TCG, right? Where like, hey, I draw a creature, I can play that creature this turn in Magic. You know what I mean? Like, or
Yeah,
Lorcana
yeah.
or whatever. So yeah, I'm pretty low on this card. I think that right now you just there's enough good basic selection, especially in in Order of the Shattered Throne, that you just put in more knights, revenants, crossbowmen, in your deck, and then just hope you have
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
those.
I think that's fair. I mean, and just so maybe we're being complete. It certainly does combo with things like answer the call, right? I mean, there's certainly the ability to search out a basic and then mid, um, activation phase, play the basic, next to an engaged ally or whatever. But we're talking a lot of cards to line up to make that a thing. So yeah, I'm still on this being pretty mid. I have it at a C plus. I think it's probably like a C for me.
Mhm. I gave
That's
it
where
an
I'm at.
yeah, I gave it an F. Unfortunately, I don't think I again, if I try to make a deck and make something work and it just doesn't feel like it's working, then like it's probably never gonna go into my deck. But we'll see. Maybe something in the future. Maybe there's like a busted like 2 drop or something like that that has to be on the field. So all right, Death Undone, 2 cost, elite unit spell, swift speed. Return an ally that has been defeated. This activation from a discard pile to its owner's hand. You can go first.
I think this kind of highlights your issue on card draw. This
Hmm.
is like pseudo card draw. Um, is it really needed though? I mean, it's a a turn late basically. Um, I don't know. There's obviously some um, value in grabbing particular unique allies, or perhaps in an elite that's going to be really solid on that particular board state. I guess there's maybe you want to grab a priest or something. It died too early, and you could really use the echo generation or something along those lines. But eh, I don't know that this is good enough with sort of a pseudo card draw that effectively helps you a turn late, that it is warranting a slot in your
Hmm.
30. It's not bad, but it's not good. And my notes say particularly in white, where the seekers are pretty decent to
Yeah.
cast. I mean, you're if you're grabbing a unique, you're essentially grabbing a unique for a turn late for an extra 2 echo. And that's going to bring up, your 2 uniques to 10 or 11 echo and white. And at that point, was it worth having the extra card in your 30 that like took up a slot in the 2 cards that you drew that turn? I don't know. Probably not. You could just cast Sigrith or Auric and
Hmm.
go on with your day.
Yep. Yeah, I don't really have much. I my notes are literally. I feel similar to this with Convoke. You know, this is even just more situational. So I I don't care for it, and especially since there's tech in the game that gets around units that are entering your discard pile and stuff, like with consume carcass and stuff.
Yeah.
Which maybe
Yeah.
like we've seen people play that in Tamorta. So I don't know if this like this just.
It's
I
kind of
don't think
scary in
people.
Immorta. Fair enough.
I don't think. I don't think that this like you'll tech in that card for this, but if somebody's already playing Consume Carcass, this is just like another casualty. I don't really have much to say on it. I just don't think that this is something like a conditional card you want to hold up to be able to hit this. It's just too slow in tempo. So I gave it a D minus.
Yeah, I think my initial grade was too high. I think I'd be at like a C minus, and I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe the D's is correct, but I it's hard for me to lower a grade out of the C's if it is still like pseudo card draw. But your point is well taken on
It's
card
not card
draw
draw
sort of
though.
being
I mean,
less impactful.
it's
It's
not
pseudo
gaining you
card
card.
draw.
It's not. Oh, I don't know. I don't see it as card. You're spending it like if this was just another unit in your hand, right? Like you a unit dies, but you.
It could be, yeah, it could be, but I mean, it is getting a unit back. It is putting a unit back into your
Sure.
hand, sort of avoiding the need to hope to draw a unit when you need
Yeah.
one.
Again, I think
That
that
said, yeah,
my exercise with these cards, like convoking them, is like if you're playing them in your deck, just like mentally file that away and be like, instead of this card, I would have played 3 knights or whatever, right? And when you draw this card, be like, just ask yourself, like, hey, would I have rather had a knight in this situation than this card, right? To me, like, when I go through those thought exercises, like, I feel like the answer is most often yes. I'd just rather have the basic unit
yeah,
than like
fair.
this to be able to select and potentially get me unique or something. You know what I mean? Like, I just rather have the guaranteed unit because this could also be just dead in hand, right? You're not dying and then you're holding it up and you're in a this doesn't help you win more, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll move on. Decree of Valcaris, 6 cost unique, spell, channel speed, return a non-seeker ally you own to your hand, and deploy another unit of the same rank or lower in its place without spending echo. The deployed unit equips any attachment the returned unit had. Um, I'll let Zach, since you had thoughts on this card in terms of like what we thought you could do with it based on other card rule interactions. I'll let you kind of speak to that
Sure.
if you don't mind. But if and then give the official ruling what they said. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, so initially, and there are similar cards in other games that have played that have essentially ruled that your hand is a hidden environment, sort of no information environment, meaning that when you return something from the board to your hand, the board estate doesn't remember what that card was, right? It is entering sort of a no information zone, meaning when it says another unit of the same rank or lower, it could technically be that same card. Because this card on the board doesn't know that in your hand there is not another unit, right? I will say the card in another game that I am particularly thinking of was I found recently, or relatively recently, errata to work that same way, but just removed another from the card in
mm-hmm.
order to make it like less confusing for players. Um, and that maybe is, something to note here. This does say another, the official ruling on this is that it does have to be a different unit than the one that you return to your hand. It can certainly be the same unit, but a different card, um, which creates some awkward situations for sure in terms of information sharing out of your hand.
Yep.
Um, it's an interesting card to an extent. It does allow for plays where you activate with one unit, you return it to your hand, and you play another unit that then also gets to activate that turn. Um, so it gives you additional action points. It's a pseudo heal, right? If you have a particularly damaged unit on the board, you can return it to hand, replace it with something that's fresh and can still activate that turn, and that has some interesting plays. It's 6 echo though. I mean, like that's a ton of echo.
Mm-hmm.
And you are up on tempo playing this card for that turn, but it actually doesn't bring you up on echo as soon as the next turn begins. Um, at best, you're sort of even on tempo, so it's a weird card, um, and one that I don't know is worth 6 echo, in my opinion. I think it's potentially a trap card.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just gonna fill in a couple. I think you did a great job explaining it. The reason, like a couple of key interactions or thoughts that we had when we evaluated this, right, is let's say you have Rogarth on the table, and if the game worked in that null state where like your opponent doesn't know what's in your hand, you could technically return Rogarth as a unique, and then play him again because your opponent doesn't know that you have another Rogarth in your hand, right? We know that the game limits only one unique per card, but like since there's a null state void, like a null state hand, they don't know, right? Because again, the card reads that you return a unit, the card to your hand first, right? Which, like let's say you're playing this on Elite, it's your Battlemaster guy that we just reviewed. How does your opponent know you have two of those in your hand? They don't really. So you really should be playing the card from your hand first, showing your opponent, hey, I'm swapping it with this one, and then return it to your hand, which is contradictive of what the card actually tells you to do. Um, and I guess you kind of already hit on it. This is essentially a channel speed endless rage slash heal, but you have to conditionally have the same card in your hand. I think it's too clunky, too slow. It's channel speed, whereas endless rage is swift speed, right? I would have rather seen this on swift speed because you could have someone like double attack into you, first attack hits. Okay, my guy's gonna die on a glance now. Boom, swap him out. Ha! You would just hit this guy and he's still
This,
alive, and then you get hit back.
I just, yeah, there's honestly legitimately interesting plays with this card. The problem is it's 6 echo. I mean, you're leaving up 6 echo, maybe five if you're playing on Starcast Halls to play this card, and it's just not worth that.
Mm-hmm.
If it was lower in echo cost, this could be an interesting card. If it was like four, maybe three even, this card would be really neat.
Maybe it's a big it's a big tempo play, and I think you aren't winning the game with it that turn, you're gonna feel it. You know, like you're gonna feel the tempo loss, or like the advantage, the resources you're giving up to gain that tempo. I feel like is going to get you're immediately going to feel behind the next turn if you don't win, right? Even if it was like a little bit cheaper, but definitely at 6 cost. Like if you're not winning the game with this card on that turn, next turn you're going to be like, well, crap, I have 6 less echo, and this unit still, you know what I mean? It's just I feel like yeah, it's just too clunky and too slow. Well, not too slow because it is a tempo play, but I think you understand what I mean. So I gave it a D
Hmm.
minus.
Hmm. I gave it a D minus as well. I think it's just way too expensive.
Mm-hmm. All right, next card. Enforce balance 3 cost unique spell swift speed. An opponent must discard 1 card at a time until they have the same number of cards in hand as you. I do think I will preface that the Manifest is definitely the S tier card, but I think that this card might be the boogeyman in terms of that it is conditionally the best card. And when I say conditionally, I mean based on your deck type. Um, you guys can stamp this, but if we ever get to a state where there is a ban list or something like that, I could see this card potentially being one of the first on the ban list. For those that aren't aware, I've been building and playing an Auric deck, which just spams a bunch of units. It's and goes very wide on board. And most times when my turn 1, I draw 7 cards, I do the bid, and then I go to deploy, and I literally just drop my hand on the table because it's all items and units that are really cheap costed. And if I hit this in my opener, which is 19% of the time, I drop my hand, keep this card in hand, and then even if I don't win, or even if I'm not activating first, since it's swift speed, I say, okay, opponent, discard your whole hand, and it can be really devastating against certain matchups. Um, yeah, I love this card. I think in Auric, this card is great. Sigrith is even loving this card because she's burning cards from hand for prevention, so she's going to eventually run out of cards as well. So to pretty much balance the game, to have your opponent just be top decking as well, it feels really strong. And 3 cost too is just so little. This card could still be better, even good at like 4 cost or even 5 cost, I think. So
Or it could have been good as a channel.
yeah,
Probably should have been a channel in truth. It's very, very good. Its swift speed makes it bananas, in my opinion. Just
yeah,
absolute bananas. Um, I laughed when you said, "Oh, my Orc deck has a 19% chance to get it in the opener," and I was like, "Yeah, unless you're against me, it's a 100% chance, apparently." But
yeah. TTS does some really weird things where we think that regardless, like I've never hit this in the opener hand against anybody else. I've played Zach, and it's every time in the hand. And one time Zach's just like, I don't want to play against it, so can you mulligan until you don't get it? I drew 7 hands in a row and got it in the opening hand 7 times in a row. I don't. I think that TTS does some weird thing where it like remembers the players and is like, oh, you're expected to get this draw or something. I don't know. That's another conversation. But yeah, sorry to interrupt.
no, no, that's exactly the story I wanted to put in here because that's so bizarre and funny that it just constantly pops up for me. And I can say on the receiving end of a first activation swift balance that discards your whole hand, it's super brutal. And it's particularly brutal for casters that rely on particularly powerful spells and leave Echo open for a super powerful turn 1 channel like an Unmake or a Demanifest or something like that. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, like I left Echo open and I just lost my whole hand.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Well,
this
I
card
think
is
I think
incredible.
that's what makes this card unfun and why it's the potential for the first, it could be, it's gonna, I think it's gonna be more and more a problem is because when you put this in your deck is, your deck is designed, like my Auric deck is designed to drop my hand, right? And just not play. So even if your opponent knows this is coming, their deck is not meant to drop cards out of there. Like they have elite units, high cost units, spells that they're wanting to hold on to. They cannot even get rid of their cards and get value. Even if I told you, hey, first turn Zach, we drew 7, I show you the card. What are you gonna do? You can't just like drop all your cards. There's no counterplay to this at all. The only counterplay is to have a counter the one two well there's two cards because it's
Yep.
Swift Speed. There's the unique one, and then there's Londrel's reversion, which just puts this back in my hand. That's it. There is nothing else you can do to prevent this from happening in those certain decks. So I think that's why it feels unfun and unfair to play against, and why it might need to get changed, or maybe they modify it some way. I don't know, but yeah, I mean
Make it a channel.
this is clearly modeled after, and I'm blanking. Like I think it's called Balance in Magic the Gathering, right?
Hmm.
And isn't that card banned in like almost all form? Well, not the
It is, and it does a few extra things.
yeah.
Balance itself does in Magic, but this is absolutely an homage to Balance in Magic. I mean, it's white, just like Balance is in Magic. The art is very similar. It's an homage, and a fun one for sure. In terms of having an homage to another game, um, but yeah, it's this card can be quite brutal.
Balance and Magic is 2 costs, so I'm just saying they kind of missed the mark in my opinion. But
I think it also balances lands and things as well. I
it
don't
does.
remember
Your
exactly what it
resources,
does,
yeah,
but
your resources. Can you
yeah.
imagine if this also dropped your Echo to the same amount as like the
Oh
first
my
one?
God, right?
All right, I gave it an A plus, obviously.
I gave it an A only because technically there are times in the game where it is just not worth the draw. Like
Yeah,
it just isn't worth the top deck.
I
Um, it's how do we say this? It's an A all of the time, and it is like a straight S.
yeah.
Like just unbelievable in certain scenarios.
I will say that there are a couple times there's one game in particular, our most recent game. I hit this in the opener, and I did not play it because I also had 2 items in hand, and I felt like the drawing 2 cards off of Oryx Legacy was more important than discarding your whole hand. So like even with it being great, like there's still times when maybe there's a better play or something like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's fair. All right, moving on to the next one. Healing Light, 2 cost basic spells, channel speed, and ally recovers 5 health. This is just, the echo to ratio is right on. Like, this is what I based all my healing abilities on. To one echo
Mhm.
should give you 2.5 health, which, is a little bit better than the damage ratio of one echo does 2 damage, right? So I'm totally fine with this. This is great. I have it as, I'll let you give more thoughts. I just think it's so vanilla, right? Like,
No, you're right. It's a fine spell. It's
yep.
completely costed appropriately. It does what you want it to do. Um, I rate it lower than prevention. I think I rate healing in general lower than prevention for a variety of reasons.
Hmm.
But and I guess maybe I'll expand on that. The variety of reasons being healing expects your guy to live. It expects you to have, the echo, the turn later, the ability to sort of heal the guy up. I mean, if he no longer, if the unit is removed from the board, prevention was just always better. And otherwise they're completely comparable. And so you
Hmm.
also have, sort of channel versus swift speed in terms of healing and prevention. Um, that said, this is completely fine. I have it at a C plus. I think it's
Yeah.
just
I
it's
have it as
not
C. The only
stellar,
other
but
thing
it's fine.
yeah, I think the only thing I'll comment on is the difference between prevention and I think all healing spells is the speed, right? Like swift. Like if this was swift speed heal 5 and you could do it in between 2 attacks or something like that, great. Like then I think it well, I still think
It definitely
prevention
goes up a notch.
yeah, it does go up a notch, but prevention just like if you get one shot, like healing's not going to do anything for you, right? So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but yeah, I think it's great filler. So C. You said C plus, right?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Herald of Salvation, 8 cost unique, 3 attack, 5/3 damage profile, 8 speed, 13 defense, 18 health, flying. While moving, this unit can pass over any obstacle. Martyr's Blessing, 5. When this unit is defeated, allies within 3 inch recover 5 health. Protection 3. Thrice per activation, this unit may absorb damage that would be dealt to a nearby ally. Damage exceeding this unit's health is dealt to the original target. Yeah, you can go for this one.
I'm gonna open my discussion with this card saying, I just realized that in our last game where I was playing Landriel, I forgot Martyr's Blessing. Um,
Did I kill it? Oh.
yeah, yeah. Funny
All right.
enough. Funny enough. Interesting. Which maybe, yeah, would have been an interesting change to that game because I just needed Landriel to hold on.
Yeah.
Regardless, I think this card is great. I really like it. I like it a ton, actually. I think it's got great stats. I think it's got incredible abilities. I think the recent ruling, or I guess we'll say clarification, that protection can daisy chain. So the most recent FAQ that dropped says that a model who uses protection can in turn be protected. So you can sort of daisy chain out your damage as long as, you are staying within how many times you can protect during an activation. Protection 3 is incredible. She has 18 health. I just, mentioned at the opening, a martyr's blessing can be legitimately impactful. I mean, in that game that we were playing, I really did need Landriel to hold on. And
Hmm.
if she would have, the game would have continued and a deck like Landriel would have an extra resources would have potentially come back legitimately. Um, Flying is obviously amazing. Speed 8 is obviously amazing. I'm super high on this card. I think it's excellent.
Yep. Yeah, I think that the big thing about this card is she hit all the right stats. Speed 8, fly, I mean, I guess flying is an ability, like all her abilities. She's just a solid card, but I love her stat line. It's 18 HP, 13 defense, 8 speed, 5-3 is all great. At flying, she just gets wherever she needs to be. And then I guess I've been realizing that I value protection a bit, like all the abilities. Like I was just thinking while you were going through, like what are some of the best abilities in the game, in my opinion? And I think they're almost all defensive. Like spell immunity is number one, resistance is number two. I think protection is number three. And the reason why I love protection so much is because you're when you're playing, you're incentivized to alpha strike or focus fire units to get activations off the board, right? And protection completely undoes that, right? Um, you know, the way we keep on talking about it, and we'll get to a deck review soon on Landrill. But the way uh, I think both of us play Landrill is that we put Landrill on the field, and then we throw a bunch of protection around her, and now you have to kill a 40 HP or a 50 HP Landrill, and it just is such like just this mass of HP that you just will never get down, and she's slowly building up a bigger and bigger board, and she's just going to grind you down eventually.
Yep.
Yeah, this card is just amazing. Um, I think this is I think that Guardian, Sestinar, they're definitely like more A pluses or A range. She, I will say, is A minus, but I think this is the bar for my unique units that I want to hit. Like, she doesn't feel super overpowering or anything, like where you're like, oh my gosh, but she feels like you're rewarded for playing her, right? Um,
Yeah. I think she's solidly an A. I really think she's great. And I think we'll go into some probably ideas and tips and tricks with regards to protection when we do like a Landriel deck tech.
mhm,
But I will say, for me, my thoughts on her were even higher when the clarification was dropped that you can sort of daisy chain protection because she offers like this node of being able to spread your damage even better. The fact
mhm,
that she herself can protect 3 times then allows you to kind of manipulate
yeah,
how damage is placed on your units. And when we're talking about white in general, but Londriel perhaps in particular, but really white in general, where you have prevention spells and healing spells and things like that, the ability to sort of manipulate the damage on the board to keep people standing and then pick the most opportune times to play your healing or your prevention is just, it's very powerful. It's very good. So yeah, I
yeah,
dig her. And cool giant angel models are also awesome. So
yep,
this is, doubly cool.
100%. All right. Knight of Astaris, 5 cost basic unit, 2 attack, 4 2 damage, 5 speed, 13 defense, 12 HP, shield wall. While other allies are nearby, they get +1, and then protection 1. So only once per activation can this model absorb damage. Yeah, I think we just, for all the reasons we just said above, this unit is very strong. Again, 5 cost is at breaking point 4-2. The only thing really that has hurts on this guy is the 5 speed. Otherwise, he's great.
Mhm.
I think I don't really have a whole lot more to add. You know.
Yeah, no, I think the only thing I would add is I agree with you that I find defensive abilities in this game to be particularly strong. And so when we're sort of doing the comparison between the Knight and the Revenant, I find that the Knight is just really, really excellent. I
Hmm.
think the Revenant, like we talked about earlier, is really good. I think the Knight, the fact that it has two pretty strong defensive abilities, it has that 5 cost damage stat line that we love, and then it has that extra pip in defense.
Hmm.
I think this card is great. I love it.
Yeah, literally same exact stats as the Revenant, just one less, yeah, defense as you mentioned, and then the abilities are different. So like again, fives are they're premium, and Shattered Throne is happy that they're the only faction that got fives, I think. So I gave them a
Mhm.
B plus.
I gave it a B plus as well. I think it's super solid. I
Yep.
think y- you can't go wrong playing 2 or 3 of these in
Yep.
white.
All right, Rites of Healing, 4 cost unique spell, channel speed, choose one. An ally recovers 10 health, or up to 3 allies recover 5 health. Go ahead.
I think, I've said earlier, and I stand by it. I think healing is not as good as prevention. I think this spell very often isn't going to get its full value. It very often isn't going to be healing the full 10. It isn't often going to be necessarily doing the full 15 heal, over 3 units. Um, that said, when it does, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And it otherwise is still very good. Um, yeah, it's totally solid. Just, it might not always be fulfilling its full potential.
Yep. Yeah, that's fair. I think I was a little high on this after playing it. It's just most like like you said, you're not getting your full potential, but in a faction that has a bunch of extra protection and they're going to be spreading damage, I feel like on paper you're always going to do that latter one, and it's going to feel really good when you're hailing 12, 13. In practice, I have yet to do that. So even with the protection, so yeah, I gave it an A minus. I don't really have much to say in terms of the ratio. Again, uh, one echo for 2.5 of
Yep.
healing, and this breaks it a little bit with the flexibility of being able to hit 3 separate allies. But will you ever actually get a full 15? Probably not. Yeah, I still gave it an A minus. That might be a little high though, but it's still really
I gave it
strong.
a B plus. Yeah, I gave it a B plus, and I think it's pretty solidly a B plus for me. Um I have cut this in particular builds where I really need space. Um and I think that for me as a unique spell is sort of telling about, sort of where it lands in terms of, some of our more powerful spells. It's really good.
Yep.
It's going to see a ton of play, but it isn't like auto include all the time. We
Right.
need this.
Yep. All right, Rites of Might, 2 cost elite spell channel speed during this activation. An ally's next attack deals X extra damage, where X is the number of engaged allies you own. So interesting. This is guaranteed damage. It doesn't like if you roll even a critical graze, you don't lose it because it's not. The way to differentiate between that is if it's using the damage icon, then it would not add to critical grazes. But this is just always doing the extra damage. Um, in terms of like the damage ratio, like you need to do 1 echo for every 1 echo. You should be doing 2 damage. This means that you need to have 4 allies engaged, which seems like a lot. Um, I don't know. I don't like that it's just the next attack. Like I feel like this could have done for this activation. This unit does extra damage and been fine. I just think it's too situational. It's yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting that you note that, and I think I agree. I think like 9 times out of 10, you're right. It could have just been this activation, and it would have been totally on rate for like what we expect from, was it Withering Pain,
Writhing
like
pain.
the
Yep.
Frailty 2 spell? Yeah, Writhing Pain. And it would have been right on rate and would have been fine. I understand that there are situations where like this having it be this activation would just make it totally off rate, and
Mhm.
would be like bonkers. But I think that those are few and far between enough that I tend to agree. The fact that it's just one attack,
Yeah.
I think it's mid. I think it can swing a stalled board, but most of the time it's mid.
Yeah. I just how often are you gonna like have that many units engaged? Right. Like I feel like at most this is gonna get maybe 5 like extra damage right on an attack. That's
Yeah.
just yeah.
And even
That's
that would be
even.
pretty
I feel like
wild.
most times it's going to give you 2 or 3, which is not great.
Yep.
So All right, I gave it a D plus.
I gave it a C. I'll stay at a C, but I could see it being like a C minus, maybe a D plus even.
All right, we got Rogarth the Breaker, 9 cost unique, 4 attack, 6-2 damage, 8 speed, 14 defense, 16 HP. Dash during this unit's activation. It may perform a free move, cleave whenever this unit defeats a nearby enemy with a melee attack. It may perform a free melee attack. Devastate 2, this unit deals 2 extra damage on critical hits. I'm just going to say this is the ultimate Timmy piece. If you're familiar with the Magic the Gathering personas, this guy can just wreck boards, and then at the same time, this guy can do absolutely nothing. So I'll let you open up with actual analysis, but
That's no, that's the perfect way to lead into Rogarth because I have seen him be unbelievable in certain games. I have seen him get hit and run and literally kill an entire board.
mhm.
And it was like just amazing. That said, I have also seen him go in and think he's going to kill the whole board and do a couple grazes and he does like 4 damage and just falls over
Yeah.
dead. And you're like, what just happened?
Yeah,
He's good.
your 9 cost unit doing 4 damage feels really bad. Really
That's the
bad.
issue. Yeah, right. So that is my issue with Rogarth. He is good. He has a super steep price. His stats and abilities are generally really good. 4 attack, excellent. 6 max damage, excellent. Speed 8, obviously amazing, right? 14, 16, good. Dash and cleave are both incredible. Devastate's kind of a non-factor, as we've talked about in prior videos. All of that said, the fact that he only does 2 damage on a graze is so rough for him. It's so rough for him. And it makes him just like he always seems like he's just amazing or garbage.
Yeah,
And that's such a weird spot for your 9 cost unique unit.
yeah. I again, I'm quickly learning that like devastate right too. Like I feel like there's some parity with all the factions. Every faction got an 8 and a 9 cost unique, and I think they could like this is just completely fabricated, but like I feel like they came to him, they're like, Rogarth, and they're like, well, we already gave him like really good abilities, and he can't get anything else that's like super impactful. And so they're like, just attack and devastate, like it's more text on the card, but it actually doesn't do anything, right? And that will justify the 9 cost versus like maybe being an 8. Yeah, I mean, I love this.
It makes him, if you use what is it, Thunderous, whatever, in red, if you were playing him in
Sure.
Auric and he charges in and hits, yeah, he's gonna do 10.
Yeah.
Which is super, nuts.
Yeah, one shot things.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Um,
but
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I love this piece. You've mentioned hit and run, though. My when I put him in the deck, that I don't even care what else I'm doing. Like my cigarette deck right now is called Boots the Chicken because my whole goal when I play that deck is I just want to get boots on Rogarth and then use Sigrist's ability so that when you hit him, I can shield the damage and then he can on your turn start killing things and cleaving and like running around the board and stuff. Like when I want to feel like a Timmy, which Timmies are like for those that aren't familiar, they're just the players that want to do the big thing. They want to play big creatures, and it just feels good. They don't care if they're winning; they're just having a good time, right? Uh, this is the model or the deck that I'll go to if I want to like play those games, just because it is such a fun piece. I mean, 8 speed is so good, dash is so good, cleave is so good. Yeah, it's just this guy is so like if we were giving it a grade for fun factor, mine would be an S for sure. Like he's the funnest
Yeah,
model I think
yeah.
to play. But from a competitive
Watching him
standpoint,
just eat a whole board is hilarious.
yeah, yeah. So I just think it's just he's just not reliable enough and not consistent enough.
Yeah.
I will say, like my all gimmick though is like when Rogarth puts on boots, how does that make the chicken move faster? And so I just like to call that out. And if I were ever, I'm not a modder. Maybe I can find someone that willing, but like I totally want a Rogarth that's riding a chocobo and just a chocobo knight. So those are my Timmy moments there. But in terms of competitiveness, I think I gave it a C plus. Maybe he's B minus. I just think that as we get more cards, this guy is going to become less and less of a factor. Just because really that 2 glancing just feels so bad. But
Yeah, I gave him a B. I could see B minus. I'll stay at B though. I think he's not worth 9. Like again, he's either going to be super worth 9 or you're going to feel bad that you spent 9 on him.
mhm.
But he's totally playable. I have him still at a B in the current game because he is a playable, good, and like game altering unique for white. But his consistency is lacking. And so I think you're right. As we see more units come out, as we see more uniques come out in white, it's possible that his grade as a result sort of slips because he doesn't quite bring the consistency you might want at a competitive level.
Yep. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Second win, 3 cost elite spell, channel speed. If there are more enemies than allies on the battlefield, refresh an ally. Um, this one, for me, it's a cheaper, more conditional Endless Rage. But Endless Rage is Swift Speed, so it's like really good when like they're done activating, you can do it, and then you immediately get to activate that unit you just refreshed. This, you're doing it on your turn, so your opponent can plan for it and then know that model is going to activate and maybe even kill it, right? Um, Also, this goes against every fiber of my being. For me, I think that activations on board are so critical to the game that I never, if I'm in a position where I'm down on activations, I'm losing. So this, like, I don't want to put a card in my deck for for that situation, right? To plan around that. That's, I don't want to be ever in a spot where I'm losing. So I'm not gonna put this card in my deck, I guess. Go ahead.
I think I think getting a second activation for 3 is pretty good. It has the potential to be a dead card and might be against, a decent number of opponents, but I think um in particular builds, it's really strong. Um has the potential to be a super high grade like sideboard card. If you kind of get the inkling based on the seeker and the terrain across the table from you that they're going to be playing some sort of swarm build, um, I think it's, potentially pretty high value. I think that there might be a play for it in some of the more like control-y builds, perhaps like a Landriel where you're trying to, more or less create like a Death Star, and having a second activation where Landriel's just like chucking out a ton of damage. And she's already like your sort of main kill condition, right? Like if you are able to activate her a second time, that's really good. Um, but you're right. Like the issue with it is just finding the space for it when it is situationally a dead card, and that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess when I say I'm losing, right? Like I'm not. It's not that I'm like mastery wise. Like my, I think playing on board is just so important. So even my decks that like Ingor. I've been playing around with Ingor lately. Ingor clearly wants a lot of spells, but I'm finding myself. I'm like, man, 18 units in Ingor with all the like sort, like you know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm very much biased. I will admit that, but like to me, like I'm always playing to have a big board, regardless of who I'm playing. So like I don't want a card that goes against my playstyle, I guess, and maybe that's it. Maybe it's just a playstyle thing, and that's why I'm so low on this card. But um, it just feels too situational. I gave it a D plus.
I give it a B, and I think B for me is correct. I do think that there are going to be builds that can utilize this, whether it's in the sideboard or whether it is in some sort of like a sort of Death Starry type build. Um, but yeah, I mean I it has some upside, it has some downside. I don't know. It's mid, but a mid B for me.
Yep. All right. Moving on to the next one. Shield of Andravos. 4 cost unique spell swift speed prevent up to 10 damage that would be dealt to an ally from a single source. Um, I gave. Well, I'm not gonna go, but for me, I think this is a little like it's really good, but I think most of the times this is gonna just you're gonna end up casting it to block 4 or 5 damage because you have to use it in that situation. And so thankfully, it's only one more cost than the Ward of Valcaris. It's not like egregious to like like it's not so much costed. And Ward of Valcaris, we'll get to it here in a couple cards, but it shields 5. So for 1 mana more, you can, or 1 echo more, you can shield 10.
Mhm.
But yeah, um, I don't know. That's just kind of how I feel on it. It's just, it's good, but I don't think it's amazing because the majority of the time you're not going to be getting the full value. Just like the healing spell. So.
That's fair. I mean, I rate prevention again higher than healing. I think this one, I think its ability to even just block 6 to 10 above the 5
Hmm.
is really good. I think there's enough situations where that's going to be a thing. I'm really high on this spell, actually. I think it's really, really good, and I'm glad that it costs 4 instead of 5. I think
Yep.
that's awesome.
Yep. Yeah.
I have it at a solid A.
I gave it an A minus though. I'm not low on this card at all. It's going in every single one of my decks. I just think that I guess I'm cautioning people, do not hold this card just for it to try to get value. Like if it's saving a guy, even though it's only blocking 4 or 5 damage, just fire it off.
Yeah.
Like I think you're gonna thank yourself later. Those games when you do block and unmake, and you could just watch your opponent cry, right? Like I think that's great. But yeah, just make sure you're getting value out of it, I guess is my cautionary tale. So next card, Truestone Exemplar, 7 cost elite unit, 3 attack, 4/2 damage, 5 speed, 14 defense, 16 HP, Ironclad. This unit gets +2 additional defense against range. Shield Wall, we already did that, and then has Protection 2 as well. Go ahead, Zach.
I'm actually pretty high on this guy generally. Um, he requires a specific build. He requires not being pushed out by perhaps other units that do similar things. I think he's really good in Londril and perhaps has some room in a Sigrith build. I think when you do run him in something like Londril, he has the potential to get pushed out um, by one of the shield mages in Conclave. But that said, I am really high on this guy. I think his abilities are great. I think the ability to go to 16 defense against range is absurdly good. But again, situational. I think shield wall is great. Protection 2, I think is excellent. I think it's quite strong. As we've talked about, at length thus far, and I think that that's all awesome. So on paper, I like this guy a ton. I think he can, however, fall into the same pitfall that many 7 cost units can. And in his case, because he's got such great defenses, it might not always be that he is a huge mastery liability like some of the other 7 costs. But I think where he can fall into a pitfall is that he might not be doing enough to the board to justify you having dropped 7 echo
Yeah.
on a single unit.
Yeah,
And that's where I'm at with it. So I'm high on him, but with a little bit of a caveat there.
he is a little pillow fisted, right? Again, I'm 4/2 damage profile. That's what my fives are doing. Like from damage output.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that being said, like man, this guy just has a lot of stats, right? 16 HP is great. 14 defense. This is what I highlighted in my notes. 14 to me is the defense where you start feeling bad attacking it, right? Like units that are 10 to 13, they all feel the same. Like I'm going to roll the number and I'm going to hit 50% of the time, right? That's kind of like how I don't even think about it when I do when you start getting to 14, that's when it's like, ooh, man, I'm probably like, I got to just count on grazing this guy. That's probably what is going to end up happening is I'm just grazing this guy. And so like to your point, like for builds, I like this guy in Landriel because, protection too, that's great. And we talked about spreading damage. Like, all these guys with protection, I'm uh, I'll save that for a later later episode. But protection 2 is great. But in Sigareth, if you can count on the odds are that people are going to glance this guy and then discarding a card from your hand to counterattack feels just feels great. Like
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
health points are deceptively large because of how I think consistent you can rely on people glancing him, right? So I think he's really probably like 20 HP or even more. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel on this guy. I like him a lot. I think that he just you need to be able to have damage in the deck somewhere else, or so like Crossbowmen, great, things like that. Because
Yeah.
you're right, he doesn't kill stuff very well. But that being said, I gave him a B just because it is a 7 cost. I think the other two that I'm learning about 7 cost and my feelings as I begin to process through more games is that the large units, like you can play them in the opener, but turns 1 through really 3, you can't really, like, if you draw a big unit, you probably can't play it just because you're so echo starved, unless you have like priests, like prey abilities or things that generate
Yeah.
echo for those turns, right? So that's kind of also been what I'm realizing on like high cost uniques or elites is like, hey, I can't play these until we get to turn 3 or 4, unless I drew them in the opener. So
Yeah, I gave him a B plus, but I think I would probably be good with bringing him down to a B myself as well. I think that that's probably right. But he's really good. Um, but I looked back and saw what I gave the Shield Mage and Conclave, and I gave that a B, and I think I'm about even on my thoughts between the two.
fair enough. All right, move on to the next one. Valcaris Priest, 4 cost basic unit, 1 attack, 3/1 damage, 6 range, 6 speed, 11 defense, 8 HP, heals 2, an ally nearby or within its range recovers 2 health. This does provoke retaliation. Note that she is always within her own range, so she can heal herself. This was clarified on the FAQ. And then Pray 3 for 1 action. For each other ally you own within 6 inches, gain 1 echo, up to 3 echo per activation. This also provokes retaliation. So you can double prey in a turn to go up to that max of 3, but you can never exceed 3 during that activation. So if you have, her and 2 other models, you can double prey, gain 2 echo for the first action, and then prey again and just only gain 1 echo for that second prey. You can never exceed the 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you go first, Zach?
I my notes on this are literally probably why you are playing white. Fantastic model. No other notes.
Yeah,
I mean, there's obviously a ton to say about this model, and this card, and it does a ton of stuff. Um, but I think this model is fantastic. I think, um, early game having one or two of these and basically all white or white adjacent decks is really strong. They quickly make up their own cost in echo generation. The heal is situationally awesome. They have obviously middling stats, but those stats are enough that they can still do some influential things on the board when you need them to, a little bit of chip damage here and there. Um, I think that this model is sort of the epitome of awesome support units in Malediction, and I think you are I would struggle to play less than three if I'm playing white.
yep, yeah. Couple things I want to caveat. This is not Totem because she can walk. Totem is stationary, right? So you are going to be getting echo for the rest of the game. Whereas in with totems, like they're there and that's all they like. I just don't think that they're hitting the prey as reliably. Also, she does other stuff. Heal, I have definitely cast multiple times. She's shot and killed seekers for me.
Yeah,
She's such a versatile piece.
I actually
That
just
being
did right in our last game.
Yeah, I think she is the one that ended up killing Landrill. So that being said, what was I going to go with this? When you hit this in the opener, or even turn 1, like turn 2, like she is amazing. When I draw her after turn 2, I find that this card is almost always being bid away. I'm not playing this because she has 8 health and 4 is often significant when it comes to mastery, and so I will like having her die uh, accelerates. Like I do feel like she's a liability putting her on the field, even though she's only 4 cost. So like after turn 2, I don't feel like she can get her echo back fast enough to be relevant on the board. Um, but I guess I want to challenge you on this, Zach. Like to me, this is like
Mhm.
she's Llanowar Elves, right? She's accelerating and gaining resources. Do you think that we will see a unit that is ever better than her in terms of like prey or gaining echo on the board? Like,
Mm. Potentially, yeah. I mean, I could see there being like a pretty poorly statted 3 cost prey model
Hmm.
that can move and isn't clumsy, but doesn't maybe have the heal or the range, has
Okay.
prey 3
Okay.
and cost 3.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I think that there are definitely cases to be made to take that 3 over the priest. And in
Sure.
fact, I probably would,
Okay.
and a lot of
That's fair.
builds, and that I could see. Um, do I think that there's going to be one sort of comparable in abilities and stats at this price point? I don't know.
Right.
Probably
Is
not.
she, yeah, exactly.
I think
Like
she's pretty
that's kind of
hyper
how I feel
efficient with
about
her
her too, is
equity.
like, she is real, like, she's just like deceptively good. Like when 3 echo is very significant. I mean, that's a whole turn.
Yeah,
The whole first
I
turn. Like
think
you get 4 first turn, right? And if you hit 2 and you gain 6, it's just like that is a fast start, and it feels really punishing for your opponent. So
yeah.
that's got, I guess,
This model is
yeah,
hyper efficient. It's
yeah,
hyper efficient.
yeah. It just can snowball games, and you can very well lose just based on the opener if your opponent hits 2 of these and you do not have a way to remove them. Like I just feel
Yeah.
like the game, it will quickly get out of reach from you. So that's why I was curious on your thoughts on if you think something could ever become better. Because even dropping it down to 3, like man, like I feel I worry about a state where there's a bunch of things that gain free echo, and then we quickly snowball away from this game that like you start strong with like your starting mastery, and then like you know incrementally get escalate the tension, I guess, right? Like this kind of just
Yeah.
like blows the doors off of that. Um, so yeah, okay. I gave her a B plus. That might be a little low, to be honest with you. Just like and it is because like I do every time I draw that after turn 2, I'm like, I don't. This isn't what I wanted to see, right? And that's really what brought her down to a B plus. Is after turns 1 or 2, she's no longer relevant. But damn, does she just take over a game if she comes out on the first 2
Yeah.
turns?
I have her at a solid A. I think, like I said, I don't think I have a deck that contains white presently in this game that is not playing 3 of her.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, I agree. I'm the same way. Um, yeah, that's fair. Let's move on to the next one. Valorous Command, 2 cost, basic spell, channel speed, and ally performs an attack. Hey, this is really good for your big cost units like your crossbowmen that hit at 5 damage.
A
Yeah,
mighty
that's
crossbowman.
yeah. What are your thoughts on? I mean, it's great.
I think yeah, 2 echo for an attack is, right on rate.
Yep.
This card is just solidly good. I may be a little high on my grade as I'm looking at it again, but regardless, like it's going to see a lot of play. It isn't bad.
Nope.
Playing this card in your deck is totally fine.
Yep.
It's like almost always going to be worth it and playable in your hand. So yeah, no, I think it's a great card. Um, in I am not playing a ton of Sigrith presently, where I think this will see the most play and the most value. So like me myself, I'm not playing this card a ton right now, but it can literally just go in any white build and it's fine.
Yep. Yeah, to me, this starts in every single one of your decks, and then when you have to cut down to 30, it is often on the chopping block. But I have it in Sigrith. I don't have it in my Auric spam list, but I think it's in some of my like other Auric decks that are more combo E or something, like wants to do something else. Um, yeah, I think it's just this is cards that you want to put in your deck. Solid, B minus range for sure. Maybe even a B, but again, I find that it's it can often be cut for better cards. So
Yeah, yeah. So I had it at a B plus, but I do think I'm a little, like I said, I think I'm a little high on it. I think a B is probably more appropriate of where my thoughts are for this one.
all right. We have Ward of Valcaris, 3 cost, elite spell, swift speed, prevent up to 5 damage. That would be dealt to an ally from a single source. This is great, flexible. I think we talked already about this. How prevention is usually better than healing. Um, yeah, I mean this is solid. Do you have
Yep.
anything to add?
Not a ton, no. I mean, like I have harped on over and over again in this video,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
prevention is great and better than healing. I think that this is a staple card in white. I think that there's going to be some white adjacent builds that don't need it, don't want it, don't take it. Um, but I think it's going to be a two of in quite a few white builds. So I dig it. I love it. Yeah,
yep.
I
All
have
right.
it at a B plus.
Yeah, I got it as B. If you want more insights into prevention, go, previous in the video. Shame on you for skipping ahead. Watch the entire content. I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's solid B. All right, Warfront Commander, 6 cost elite unit, 2 attack for 2 damage profile, 6 speed, 13 defense, 12 HP. Battlecry, an ally you own of this unit's rank or lower, and within 6 inches performs an attack or a move. Inspire 2, while other allies are within 6 inches, they get +2 attack. You can go.
Yeah, this one's a tough one for me. I'm not that into this guy. I think he's costed really high for like what I'm getting out of him. I can't rank him low because I think Battle Cry is actually a very good ability and has a ton of strategic uses when it's actually on the field. Um, Inspire 2 is good. I just don't know that I need it, and I don't know that I want to spend this much echo for it.
Yep,
And his stats are just fine otherwise, right? They're just whatever.
yep.
They're nothing sort of special. And so what it boils down to is I'm bringing this guy for Battle Cry, and I don't know that I want to be spending 6 echo just for Battle Cry, as good as it is. Um, that's where I'm at with it. Maybe you'll go into this. I mean, it's nice that he's an elite. That's
Hmm.
interesting. In terms of battle cry,
Yep.
opens up, the doors to more uses of battle cry versus say the shaman in Primal Blood. But regardless, 6 just feels too high for what I want to get out of this guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I will say that when you have 2 crossbowmen on board, a 6 cost shaman is still pretty darn good. Yeah, I had
Yeah,
a
that's
game
fair.
I had a game recently was against Vorendal, and this guy was leading like the charge essentially, had him in front, and then 2 crossbowmen backing him up, and then Vorendal charged him. 13 defense, 12 HP doesn't kill him in one shot. And so this Warfront commander goes, and it felt like that scene from Lord of the Rings where Aragorn gets blasted off the wall, and then he stands up in the water and he like leads the chart, and like a bunch of arrows just go past him. That's pretty much what he did. He just like pointed at Vorendel, and both crossbowmen popped Vorendel in the face for for 5-10 damage essentially. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right, right? Like if he's enabling 4 crossbow shots in a turn,
yeah.
he's amazing. 6
Yep.
is absolutely worth it. It's just outside of that.
Yeah, I do find that the Inspire is not insignificant. I like that ability on him for what he's doing. Um, the it's just yeah. When it comes down to it, in that scenario, 6 cost with 2 crossbowmen, absolutely worth it. But that might be a testament to crossbowmen more than to himself. The
Yeah,
battle
yeah.
cry isn't as flexible as shaman, where shaman is like low costed, but she has so she's enabling better units that hit more to do things. Where he's already like a 4-2. So like you know what I mean? Like you're not always like if it wasn't for those crossbowmen hitting at 5-3, like battle crying a revenant, battle crying a knight, like yeah, like maybe he can't get into engage, so it does make him more flexible. It doesn't feel as like the number of plays as wide open as with the shaman. Um, so yeah, I think he will ended up getting edged out. Right now, there's just not a lot of elite units that I think Battlecry does. If we see elite units that hit at like 5-3 or something like that, then maybe like he'll be brought in or
Yeah.
do some other unique
Yeah.
stuff. I gave him a C plus.
I gave him a C plus as well. And even that I could see myself going down to a C, but I'll stay a C plus.
Yep. All right, so that's gonna do it for this episode. Zach, why don't you start us off with our final thoughts on Order of the Shattered Throne?
Yeah, I mean, I think, probably as noted, if you go through all the grades, my guess is it shows that in my opinion, white is a super solid color. I think it has um, an amazing card quality. I think its unit card quality is very high in comparison to the other colors in Malediction. I think um, it's a well-rounded color generally. The one thing that I had sort of in my final notes as I was preparing for this episode was I think white as a color has very few traps, but it has some. And I think where this faction tends to have people falling into traps on a competitive play level is actually when you lean too far into the seekers and their legacies. So there is, I think, a tendency to look at some of the like card advantage engines or card draw engines or et cetera on some of the white or white adjacent seekers, and you want to lean super heavily into that gimmick basically. And I think that that is a mistake in almost in most cases. I think that there is still the need to have a well-rounded sort of play to the board type deck to capitalize on what wins competitively in Malediction in general. And when you lean too far into particular gimmicks with your seekers and their legacies, sometimes you're actually lowering the quality of your deck and hurting, sort of your play to the board ability. And when we're talking about white, then where you have such a high quality, well-rounded color, it's just harming you to lean too far into particular gimmicks. And so I would suggest and recommend with white in particular, really with all colors, but I definitely see it with white a lot. Remember that you have a high quality selection of cards. You don't have a ton of traps. It's okay to benefit from your seeker and their legacy when you can, and you don't need to go out of your way to sort of build towards those often. And
Yeah.
doing so is often not the correct path for sort of white and white adjacent seekers.
Yep. Yeah,
And
I
that,
think.
that's where I'd end it. I think this is a great color. I think it's
Yeah.
actually potentially the strongest color.
Yeah.
Certainly up there.
Yeah, I mean, just I'll lead with this faction has 22 cards, which ties it for last with Primal Blood. Um, but as you mentioned, I think this faction has the strongest units of the game, and for a game that favors playing on board, I think it just is benefits it leans into its strength. And like you said, this faction doesn't want to be flashy, right? Like look at all its spells, like there are some like flashy spells or trixies with like call to arms and stuff like that, but those I would argue are the trap cards, like right, like just play to your strengths. All your units are very efficient, very well statted, play on board. Even the spells you do want to take, protections, heals, things, they're not flashy, but like they're just efficient. Like you're just gonna outvalue
Mhm.
your opponent most of the time. So you don't need to be tricksy or like try to get your opponent. You'll just beat them as long as you have consistent die rolls and make good plays, right? Make good choices, right? Um, yeah, I think it's a very solid. I think that Loot, kudos to Loot. I think they did a really great job. Now that we finished all the primary colors, our last episode again will be the dual color cards as well as the attachments or items. Um, but I think yeah, all of them feel balanced. And we were talking how like even Seekers, like we're not going to do a grade on Seekers or anything because I think you could take any seeker and any single one could win a tournament or an event. I don't think that there is
Yeah.
this steep like oh here's S tier. Like there's definitely ones that are stronger. Don't get us wrong, like Landrill, right? Like
Mhm.
I feel like we both agree that she's probably the strongest one, but even Landrill can get beat if she gets off to a slow start and your opponent comes out really fast, right? Like
Mhm.
it feels like any deck any could win, and it has a healthy amount of RNG, right? It feels like a card game, right? If you hit your nuts opening draw, right, that most cards, like you're gonna have a strong start, you're gonna have a high chance of winning the game. But um, yeah, I don't know that those are kind of my final thoughts.
Oh,
Do you
that's
have
a
anything
great
else?
final thought. Yeah, to wrap up sort of the solid color card review videos is absolutely. I think um, the RNG and the balance between the factions in this game is incredibly well done, and kudos to Loot for that because I agree. I think at the end of the day, what is going to win you events is recognizing, of course, trap cards and the solid cards, but it's going to be reps with your seeker. It's going to be sitting down, getting reps in with your seeker, understanding their strengths, understanding their matchups, because in truth, yeah, the gap between the best seeker and the worst seeker is pretty minimal.
Yep.
There definitely, in my opinion, is a ranking of, best to worst when it comes to seekers, but it is not a huge band separating, top from the bottom. And any of them could definitely win an event. If you are making quality, solid card choices based on your evaluation of these cards, and then you are getting in the reps with your seeker to understand exactly how they like to play and how they would approach particular situations, you can definitely win with any of them. Which again, yeah, is feels really good to be playing a game with, that's well tested, well balanced.
Yeah. We haven't done an episode. We're planning to do a channel episode where we kind of talk more about our backgrounds and stuff. But Zach and I are well versed in not only card games but miniature games that we've been playing for the last 20 years. And one of the things that you mentioned on it, just getting reps in, I find this game compared to most other miniature games that the seekers have a vastly different play style. Whereas like in other miniature games, I feel like you can swap armies and you're kind of playing the same way. You know what I mean? Like there's transferable skills. There are some seekers in here where like the plays are vastly different. I feel like in the way
Yeah,
that they want
yeah,
to play, and like in terms of like deciding what units, not even deciding what unit, but like when to deploy units. Right? Some want to come out really strong and just flood the board. Others like I think there's a lot of skill in understanding when do I put my seeker down or like big units down, right? Like, because like first turn you want to be picking up relics, but by delaying it, you're hiding information. You're like, you know what I mean? I just think that there's so many different possibilities here in this game, which makes it great and fun to think about, and it feels like every time you go to play is like a completely different experience, right? Or a new experience. So I don't know. I probably saved that for a whole other topic, but it
for
is
sure.
it's been shocking to me whenever I jump to a new seeker and play a first game and I realize things that do not transfer over from the other seekers that have been playing. And it's like, oh,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
you don't want to do
Yeah,
this, you know?
sometimes it's sort of difficult to change gears in your brain as you switch between seekers and like sort of testing games. And that I think you're right. I think that's a strength. I think that's a good thing about the
Yeah.
game for sure. Which is very cool.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you all for attending and watching. Again, if you like the content, please make sure to like and subscribe. We love engagement with the community. Please either leave a comment on the channel or message us in Discord. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all for watching.